You will learn about ecological pyramids. All of us know about the pyramids of Egypt, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. This pyramid structure is also obtained when we illustrate the number or biomass or energy of different organisms at different trophic levels in an ecosystem, also known as the ecological pyramid. The ecological pyramid is a graphic representation of an ecological parameter such as number of individuals, amount of biomass, or amount of energy present at different trophic levels in an ecosystem. Trophic levels represent the position of organisms in the food chain. The base of an ecological pyramid represents the first trophic level or producers. The next trophic level comprises primary consumers, followed by secondary consumers, and finally tertiary consumers at the top. Each of these trophic levels represents a functional level and not a single species as such. Also, all the organisms at a particular trophic level must be considered for any calculation on number, biomass, or energy. For example, we need to consider all the organisms in trophic level 2, namely the grasshopper, mouse, and squirrel, for any calculations on number, biomass, or energy. This is because our generalizations will be invalid if we consider only a few organisms at any trophic level. However, it is also possible that a given organism simultaneously occupies more than one trophic level in the same ecosystem. For example, when a pigeon consumes grains and fruits, it is a primary consumer. Conversely, when the same pigeon consumes worms and insects, it becomes a secondary consumer. Based on the types of parameters used, ecological pyramids are of three types: pyramid of numbers, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. A pyramid of numbers is a graphic representation of the number of individuals per unit area present at various trophic levels in an ecosystem, and its shape varies from one ecosystem to another. For example, in grassland or pond ecosystems, there are a large number of autotrophs or producers per unit area. However, the number of herbivores that depend on these producers is few, and the number of carnivores that depend upon the herbivores is still fewer. Therefore, in these two cases, the pyramid of numbers is an upright one, that is, converging towards the tip. Now, in a parasitic food chain like the one shown in the image, a single large tree is supplying food to a large number of herbivorous birds. These herbivorous birds, in turn, are food for a still larger population of ectoparasites, on which a large number of hyperparasites depend. Therefore, in this case, the pyramid of numbers is inverted. Consider the third case, where a single large tree provides food to a large number of herbivorous birds. These birds, in turn, are a source of food for carnivorous birds like eagles and kites, which are fewer in number and hence the pyramid is spindle-shaped, that is, broader in the center and narrow above and below. Now, let's learn about the pyramid of biomass, which is a graphic representation of biomass present per unit area in each trophic level in an ecosystem. In a terrestrial ecosystem, producers have maximum biomass, which decreases progressively from lower to higher trophic levels. Therefore, the pyramid of biomass in a terrestrial ecosystem is always an upright one. On the other hand, the pyramid of biomass in an aquatic ecosystem is either inverted or spindle-shaped. For example, in the food chain shown in the image, the biomass of carnivorous fish is greater than herbivorous fish, and the biomass of the herbivorous fish is much greater than the producers or phytoplankton, leading to an inverted pyramid. However, in aquatic ecosystems like the ones found in the North Pacific Ocean, the pyramid of biomass is spindle-shaped, and the biomass of zooplankton exceeds that of the producers or phytoplankton, while the biomass of primary and secondary carnivores such as herring and sea lion gradually decreases as they are fewer in number compared to the zooplankton. Finally, a pyramid of energy is a graphic representation of the amount of energy trapped per unit time and unit area at different trophic levels of an ecosystem. Each bar in a pyramid of energy represents the energy present at each trophic level at a given time or annually per unit area. Energy is always higher at lower trophic levels, that is, the producer, and flows to higher levels. Moreover, some energy is used for the metabolic activities of organisms, and some energy is dissipated as heat in the process. That is why a pyramid of energy is always upright and never inverted. An ecological pyramid also has certain limitations. For instance, it always considers a simple food chain which doesn't exist in nature. Moreover, it doesn't consider a food web and does not take into account species that exist simultaneously at two or more trophic levels. Another limitation of an ecological pyramid is that it never takes into account decomposers or saprophytes, though they play a significant role in an ecosystem. In general, an ecological pyramid shows the feeding relationship between groups of organisms and also depicts the amount of biomass or energy present at various trophic levels in an ecosystem. You have now reached the end of this module. In this module, you learned that an ecological pyramid is a graphic representation of an ecological parameter such as number of individuals, amount of biomass, or amount of energy present at different trophic levels in an ecosystem. Ecological pyramids are of three types: pyramid of numbers, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy, based on the types of parameters used. A pyramid of numbers is a graphic representation of the number of individuals per unit area present at various trophic levels in an ecosystem. A pyramid of biomass is a graphic representation of biomass present per unit area at each trophic level in an ecosystem. A pyramid of energy is a graphic representation of the amount of energy trapped per unit time and unit area at different trophic levels of a food chain.
Recent studies conducted in different countries show that around 83% of all tap water contains plastic particles. Let us explore the effects of human activities on an ecosystem by taking the case study of one of the largest freshwater lakes in India, the Kolleru Lake. The Kolleru Lake spans between two districts in Andhra Pradesh, namely the West Godavari and Krishna districts. Since the lake is formed as a shallow depression, it receives water from channels and drains of two rivers, namely Godavari and Krishna, along with rich nutrient sediments. The total area of the lake is about 900 square kilometers, with an average depth of 1 to 3 meters. Besides Godavari and Krishna, the lake collects fresh water from a number of sources such as Budameru, Tamileru, Ramileru, Gaderu and Gursuvagu rivers, as well as a number of streams. The lake in turn drains excess water into the Uputeru River, which flows into the Bay of Bengal. The rivers and streams which drain into the Kolleru Lake take up an area of around 6,121 square kilometers. This area forms a drainage basin. The seasonal inflow of water from the drainage basin raises the water level of the lake to around 3 to 4 meters. This consequently increases the area of the land covered with water permanently or temporarily, which is known as a wetland. Wetlands are unique as they exhibit the properties of both land and water, thereby developing into a unique ecosystem. The Kolleru wetland receives a huge quantity of nutrient-rich sediments and silt from the flooding of Budameru and Tamileru streams. Thus, it has become a large coastal freshwater wetland ecosystem, which supports the growth of varied flora and fauna, both local and endemic. Further, the Kolleru Lake has been designated a wetland of international importance due to its significance in terms of biodiversity and its enormous influence on the environment. This lake is home to migratory birds such as stilts, shovelers and pelicans between the months of October and March. These birds come from northern Asia and eastern Europe. It is estimated that 193 species visit this wetland every year, including flamingos, grey pelicans, open-bill storks, painted storks, glossy ibises, white ibises and teals. This is why in November 1999, Kolleru Lake was declared a wildlife sanctuary by the government of Andhra Pradesh. Further, the lake is a rich source of medicinal plants and serves as a source of drinking water for people living in its vicinity. Moreover, the Kolleru wetland is also home to around 2 lakh people who depend on water for agriculture and aquaculture since the 1990s. The method of culturing aquatic animals such as fish and prawns for commercial purposes is called aquaculture. As aquaculture resulted in high profits, it gradually spread to other areas of the Krishna and Godavari Delta by the 1980s. By 1996, uncontrolled illegal encroachment of the lake bed for commercial cultivation of fish and prawns increased. Therefore, a large portion of the area, that is around 106 square kilometers of the water in the Koleru Lake, was converted into aquaculture ponds. Gradually, this disturbed the natural flow of the lake, which in turn affected its water holding capacity, resulting in the shrinking of the Koleru Lake. Due to this, the surrounding rivers and streams began to flood the nearby agricultural lands, causing damage to crops. Besides encroachment and silting, the discharge of domestic wastes from nearby municipalities, release of effluents from industries located in the vicinity of the lake, and agriculture runoff from fields containing organic and inorganic substances polluted the lake. Let us see how these pollutants altered the ecological nature of the Koleru wetlands ecosystem. Organic and inorganic substances in the waste supplied nutrients for the extensive growth of aquatic weeds such as Eichhornia, Pistia, and Algae, which competed with the native plants for nutrition and oxygen. Such uncontrolled growth of weeds on the surface of water did not allow the sunlight to penetrate into the lake, preventing underwater plants from preparing their food. This led to the death of aquatic plants, which in turn killed the animals dependent on them for their sustenance. The death of aquatic life increased the growth of decomposers, which led to the breakdown of the dead organisms and created the condition of hypoxia or oxygen deficiency. This low amount of dissolved oxygen in water led to a high biological oxygen demand or BOD. BOD is the amount of dissolved oxygen used by the microorganisms in breaking down the organic matter. A high BOD made it tough for the aquatic organisms to survive, which eventually led to their death and disturbed the ecosystem of the wetland. Furthermore, the addition of domestic wastes into the lake led to pollution by pathogenic microbes such as bacteria, viruses, and protozoa. This resulted in the outbreak of waterborne diseases such as diarrhea, typhoid, and amoebiasis among the local people who depended on the lake water for their daily activities. Moreover, fishes and prawns grown in the lake bunds were also infected with pathogens, which made them unfit for consumption. However, the water and soil contaminated with pathogens and chemicals proved to be unfit for agriculture. By observing the two tables given below on the Koleru Lake, we can clearly understand the consequences human activities on the ecosystem in and around the lake. To restore the natural beauty of the Koleru Lake, the then Ministry of Environment and Forests of India launched a project called Operation Koleru in 2006. Since the untreated fish tank discharges from aquaculture farms also contributed to the pollution of the lake, modern aquaculture activities were replaced with traditional fishing activities under the program. The illegally constructed fish ponds were demolished and industrial effluents and municipal wastes diverted away from the lake in an attempt to restore the biodiversity of the region. On the other hand, Operation Koleru left many people who worked in fish ponds and feed storage houses unemployed, and many villages were abandoned. Thus, we have seen how human activities can affect the natural ecosystem of a certain area with the help of the Koleru Lake example.
Learn about the effects of pesticides and alternative methods against pesticides. Pests are the animals that damage the crop species. Today, the world population is increasing day by day. and leading to a substantial increase in the food production. When crops are grown in abundance, there always lurks the danger of pests and parasites affecting them. To maximize the growth of the desired crop, we need to eliminate these pests by using pesticides. There are several types of pesticides acting upon different pests. Some of them are bactericides used for controlling bacteria, insecticides for controlling insects such as mosquitoes and aphids, fungicides for controlling fungal species and fungal spores, and so on. The benefits drawn from these pesticides are short-lived but may prove hazardous in the long run as they are active throughout once applied. Some modern synthetic pesticides are active for years, while pesticides obtained from natural sources last only for few days. Based on the effect of the pesticides on the pests, they have been classified into broad spectrum and narrow spectrum. A broad spectrum pesticide such as DDT kills a wide range of pests, while narrow spectrum pesticides such as Bt toxin kill a limited number of pests. Pesticides work by causing biological or physical harm to the pests, causing the reduction of pest population. Pesticides have helped farmers by reducing the crop damage from pests and in turn increased the yield. On the other hand, they are also creating negative impact on the environment by causing the death of non-target animals. Studies show that for every target animal poisoned, 100 to 300 non-target animals die. Since these pesticides are sprayed, they don't reach the target and are carried away by air or to land or to water, causing the pollution. Pesticides can be classified into two types: biodegradable and non-biodegradable. Biodegradable pesticides are those pesticides that can be broken down within days or weeks by microbes in the soil, causing minimal environmental pollution. Example for biodegradable pesticide is Bt toxin that is genetically induced into the plants. Non-biodegradable are those pesticides that live in the soil for a longer time and cannot be degraded by natural process. For example, DDT, a non-biodegradable pesticide, remains in the body of the pests when eaten. This leads to increase in concentration of the pesticide in the first organism in the food chain, known as bioaccumulation. These pesticides stored in an organism at one trophic level are passed on to the organism at the next trophic level through the food chain. This leads to increase in concentration of the pesticide from one trophic level to other in a food chain known as biomagnification or bioamplification. Many species of predatory birds, including bald eagles, osprey and peregrine falcons, have declined in number because of DDT accumulation. Other than animals, even pesticides can create an impact on nervous system, reproduction and growth in humans when consumed. However, pesticides cannot be completely banned pertaining to its ability to control pests. But certain alternatives can surely be used to reduce the harmful effects of pesticides on the food chain and the environment. Some of the alternatives are rotation of crops, studying the life history of the pests, biological control and sterilization of pests. Now let us understand each one by one. Growing different crops on a piece of land in successive seasons is known as rotation of crops. The advantage of crop rotation is that it prevents pests and diseases of one crop from spreading to the other crop because the disease-causing organisms are host-specific. This results in increasing the productivity of crops. Knowledge of life history of pests can also help one to minimize the damage caused by pests. Biological control is an effective method of controlling pests by introducing natural predators or parasites of the pests. Examples are the ladybugs that are good predators for aphids, mites, and caterpillars. Sterilization of pests is another technique for pest control by converting the fertile male to sterile male and allowing them to mate with female. This resulted in production of sterile eggs which did not hatch, causing the reduction in pest population. Mexican fruit fly Anastropha ludens is the best example for pest sterility. Let us finally take into consideration environmental ethics, which is foremost. This talks about human beings' ethical relationship with the nature. Human beings must take themselves accountable for the resources used by them in order to maintain healthy environment for everyone. You have now reached the end of this module. In this module, you learned that pests are the animals that damage the crop species. Pesticides are used to eliminate the pests to maximize the growth of the desired crop. Bactericides, insecticides, and fungicides are some of the examples for pesticides. Pesticides can be broad spectrum and long living or narrow spectrum and short living. DDT is a broad spectrum pesticide while Bt toxin is a narrow spectrum pesticide. Pesticides can be classified into two types: biodegradable and non-biodegradable. The increase in concentration of the pesticide in the first organism when eaten in the food chain is known as bioaccumulation. The increase in concentration of the pesticides from one trophic level to other in a food chain known as biomagnification or bioamplification. Predatory birds such as bald eagles, ospreys and peregrine falcons have declined in number because of bioamplification. Some alternatives used to reduce the harmful effects of pesticides are crop rotation, studying the life history of the pests, biological control, and sterilization of pests.